Hi, this is Shawn Myszka again from Explosive Edge Athletics here in Eden Prairie, Minnesota. It's that time of the year where the NBA Finals are full and in effect. It's one of my favorite times of the year, but it's also one of the times that we can see a major contribution of vertical jumping to athletic performance and the direct correlation between the two. We can also see something that I'm going to talk about today, and that's the difference between force absorption and force exertion. The topic that we're going to talk about today is an exercise that, in a concept that I'm very passionate about, and it's one that I feel should be on the forefront of many strength coaches and athletic performance coaches' minds, and that's the drop jump, or what some people refer to as altitude shocks, or shock landings, or stick landings, sometimes drops. For the sake of this video, I'll just refer to them as drop jumps. They should not be confused with depth jumps, which is where someone steps off a box and immediately jumps upward. With a drop jump, you're simply going to step off the box and try to absorb the most amount of force without faltering. Now, when we look at plyometrics, the original intention of plyometrics, or the original definition of plyometrics, actually means to increase measurement, which is exactly what happens in an eccentric contraction. And that's what Perfromance, the inventor or pioneer of these two movements, drop jumps and depth jumps, which were the original two exercises in plyometrics, was intended to mean eccentric contraction. So essentially what Perfromance found is that his jumpers, or his best jumping performances in his jumpers, came from the people who spent less amount of time on the ground. This led him to hypothesize that with less time spent on the ground, you had to have an extreme amount of eccentric strength or eccentric ability to overcome the forces built up after a run-up. So this led him to design these two exercises to work on not only overall eccentric dynamic strength, but also reactive ability. So I'm going to hit on the drop jump. It's where I believe everything starts and stops when it comes to training for jumping performance. Essentially, Newton's law, every action has an equal and opposite reaction. In jump training, what goes up must come down, and more specifically in athletic performance training, before we can exert maximum force, we need to be able to absorb it. So why does this exercise work? Well, first off, there's a key concept at play here. The amount of force that the body is required to absorb during lengthening, as in eccentric contractions, should be much greater, or is much greater than it is in a concentric contraction while muscle and tendon is shortening. Case in point, when someone is running at max speed, they're required to absorb about 4 to 6 times their body weight each and every time their foot hits the ground. So if this isn't addressed in training, like it often isn't in the United States, where we focus on absolute strength or concentric power, it can lead to technical inefficiency, where someone won't be able to jump very long or jump very high for very long periods of time. It can lead to injury, the so-called non-contact injury of the hamstring, the ACL, MCL, high ankle sprains, Achilles tendon, those types of things. Or it can just lead to outright non-athleticism. So we need to address eccentric strength first and foremost, and when it looks at jumping, this is what we do. The other flip side of it is if someone doesn't have enough eccentric strength or eccentric ability, their stress shortening cycle movements and stress shortening cycle power production will be inhibited. For example, if their eccentric strength isn't there, their range of motion in an eccentric range or eccentric contraction will be over too long a range of motion, or will take too long to complete. So again, eccentrics to me is everything. If we want to decrease amortization time or decrease coupling time and increase reactive ability, we need to take care of eccentrics first. Unfortunately, in most people's training styles, they train only the taking off aspect of a jump before building up the capacities to absorb an extreme amount of force that occurs at run-up and then transfer that into a positive direction. That's why we do this exercise. So I'm going to show you a few guidelines here and show you a little bit about how we program and how we do the drop jump or the altitude shock or shock landing. When you first look at the box height when you're doing a drop jump, obviously like I said, you're just jumping off the box and sticking a landing. The box height should be one where you choose the box that is going to allow you to absorb the most amount of force without faltering. That height is going to be different. Research and studies have shown us that that's different for everyone depending on the foundational strength, landing mechanisms, eccentric ability, etc. So we usually start our athletes at about the same height of their vertical. I used to start at about 20% higher, but I found that this is too high. So we look at starting at the same height of the vertical. Because I did a drop jump workout 2 days ago, I'm only going to do about a 20-inch box here, just to make sure that we're clean. But This box, when you step off the box, you're going to try to stick and absorb quickly without faltering. Again, you're going to try to stabilize as quickly and rapidly as possible. You want to stick to the landing soft and silent. One thing that most people do when they do drop jumps, or depth jumps for that matter, is when they approach ground, they don't prepare their body for the landing. So that is the main thing that I'm looking for my athletes, is I want them to try to approach the ground like a plane approaching a landing. They want to get their landing gear down well before they touch ground. What this does is it results in an active pre-stretch happening in the muscle tendon complex, and it'll put the actin and myosin cross bridges in a better position to deliver the most amount of force in the least amount of time. Another thing that you're going to do is when you step off this box, before you ever descend, you're going to take a huge deep breath in. So all of your air is in when you stick on this landing. So I'm going to just perform one rep and then hit on a few other guidelines with this. One note is the drop jump or depth jump alike should not be done by athletes who are inexperienced with training. There should be a good foundational strength and a good amount of eccentric ability present before they ever perform this movement. It's one major pet peeve of mine on people doing drop jumps and depth jumps with athletes who are not ready. So if you have any questions about that, make sure you contact me. Simply going to step off the box. You're not going to try to jump off the box. You're just simply stepping off. You don't want to step upward because you're going to change the forces. The amount of force that's being absorbed off of this box alone is about 4 to 6 times your body weight. So we need to make sure that we're keeping everything as controlled as possible. So you can see that I actually stabilized and held the force for a short period of time. That allowed my body to stabilize and make sure that I had things in position. As a coach, if there was a coach here instructing me through, they could then adjust based on where biomechanical positions and considerations are being held. Notice when I landed, I was trying to land as soft and silent as possible. There were no heels touching the ground. My heel was up, my toe was up, my foot was dorsiflexed. So I was trying to attempt to land on the ball of the foot, or really right through the laces of my shoe. With the actual landing position here, you can try to tailor that to your sport-specific needs. Okay, you want to try to assume a landing position that is going to have as much carryover as possible and have as much sport-specific needs. There from a spatial standpoint, spatial meaning range of motion, width, depth, etc. You can also change the programming based on how high you want to land to work on different muscle groups or different landing positions and techniques. For Shawn Myszka and Explosive Edge Athletics, that's our video newsletter of the month. One thing, if you have any questions about this exercise, please don't hesitate to give us a call, 952-746-9003, or you can contact us at explosiveedgeathletics.com. I just hit on the tip of the iceberg with this exercise, but it's one of my favorite when it comes to jumping and jumping higher and increasing jumping and power capabilities. Thank you, and we'll see you again next month.